Hey, Geometry, and welcome back to another day. Some good news for you today. Do have some vocabulary words, but there's not as many as the other day. Only 5 new words for us. Okay. So this first one, vertical angles. This is where we have two angles whose sides are opposite rays. I'll draw a picture over here for us. If we had opposite rays forming some angles, so they all have the same vertex here. So notice right here we've got one set of opposite rays, two sets of opposite rays. Okay, so this angle, if I number these, 1, 2, 3, or 4, the vertical angles here would be angle 1 and angle 3. Then we also have a set here, angle 2 and angle 4. And you might be able to see it. We'll talk about this more later, but these angles, when they're the vertical angles across the x from each other, okay, so think about it, this top part and the bottom part there across the x, okay, they are going to be congruent or equal to each other in value. Okay, now our next one, a linear pair. This is when we have a pair of adjacent angles, remember adjacent means beside each other, whose non-common sides are opposite rays. So one example of that would be right here. This angle and this angle would be a linear pair. They are opposite rays here, so if you look at that, hopefully you can figure out that looks like a straight angle that's now cut into two parts, so it's going to add up to 180. Now up in my original picture here, there's a couple examples of that. Angle 1 and angle 4 here would be an example of a linear pair. 1 and 2, 2 and 3, or 3 and 4. Remember, a linear pair means they're adjacent, so they have to share a side, and then their non-common side is opposite rays, meaning they will add up to 180 and share a side there. Complementary angles. This is when we have two angles whose measures sum to 90 degrees. Okay. So, a couple ways we could have it. They could be adjacent, and if that was the case, it's going to look something like this, where those two angles will add up to 90, as we see by this box. They're adjacent, but they add up to 90, so they are complementary. It also could be two angles that aren't even really touching. They aren't even close to each other. But it's a case of if this one is 50 degrees and this one's 40 degrees, 50 and 40 equals 90, so those two would be complementary. Supplementary. So similar, except instead of adding to 90, it adds to 180 degrees. Okay. So one example of this we already drew, linear pairs. Those are supplementary angles. Okay. So once again, they could be adjacent if that's the case. This is a linear pair, but it's also two angles that are supplementary. Or it could be something like in the last one, they might not be touching. So if this is 110 degrees, then the angle that's supplementary to that would be 70 degrees. Is 70 plus 110. I know my one over here isn't the best. 110 plus 70 gives us 180. All right, and our final one, an angle bisector. Much like a segment bisector, cuts it into two parts. Remember, bicycle has two wheels, so bi is a prefix that means two. So a bisector has two sections of the angle, and they're going to be, once again, congruent or equal. So if we had a right angle here, it doesn't have to be right, but if it was cut, this is the bisector. Let me draw it. Right there, that's the bisector. It cuts it now, and we have 45 on one side, 45 on the other. So the bisector cuts it into two equal parts. All right, so we look at this picture, and it says, are angle 2 and angle 3 a linear pair? So here and here. And initially, we'll notice they're adjacent, so you might think that they are a linear pair. However, do you see how the non-common side, so here's the common side, the non-common side does not form opposite rays. They would not add up to 180, so our answer is no. If we could straighten this line up and it went something like this, obviously mine isn't straight, but a straight line right there, right in line with that one, then it would be. But in our case, the answer is no. All right, what about 3 and 4 down here? Hopefully you notice this line is straight. So 3 and 4 would be, yes, they are a linear pair. Is they're supplementary, or they add up to 180. They're also adjacent. They share a side. Okay, the final one, 1 and 3. Are they vertical angles? And that one's tough. They are across the x, but the x has this crick in it. Okay, so once again, if this one went up like this and this one wasn't there, the answer would be yes. However, in our case, the answer is no, because they're not going to be congruent. Okay, now if we look down here, we have some vertical angles. So we're going to start by labeling angle 2 here, 52 degrees. And the angle that is vertical to that would be angle 4 across here is also going to be the same, 52 degrees. Now, 2 and 3 are what we call a linear pair. So we know they'll add up to 180. So we can take 180 minus that 52, and we'll be left then with 128. Okay, so we fill that in, 128 degrees here. And we know that 3 and 1 are going to be congruent because they are vertical, so that will also be 128 degrees. On our next problem, same concept, but a little bit more challenging because now we got some algebra in it. We got to find x and y. So let's start with our x's here, these two that I put a dot on. Those would be an example of a linear pair. They're right beside each other, so we're going to add them together, and they will add up to equal 180. 2x and 4x combine to 6x, plus 5 minus 5 here. Those cancel out. If you want to put plus 0, you can, or you can just put equals 180. We divide by 6, and we get x equals 30. Now, this is asking us to find x and y and the angle measures. So we'll plug that in right here for that x. So 2 times 30, whatever we get, plus 5. 2 times 30 is 60 plus 5. So this is 65 degrees. Hopefully you guys realize now that this and this angle are vertical, so we can set that to be 65 degrees. At the top, we'll plug it in, 4 times 30 minus 5. So 4 times 30 is 120 minus 5, 115 degrees. So this one is also 115. Now that's good because 115 and 65 do add up to 180, so we know we did it right. Now the final step here, we want to find what y is. Two options. They add those two angles together to equal 180, or we can just set 3y plus 5 equal to the 65 we found here. Subtract the 5, subtract the 5. 3y will equal 60, and y will equal 20. All right, so when we flip to the back here, angle 1 and angle 2 are vertical angles. Okay, so if we look here, they're vertical angles, which means they have to be equal. So we can take the two parts they give us, 2x plus 3, set that equal to 3x minus 10. We'll subtract, let's do it the other way to keep it positive. You could do it that way, but I think lots of you prefer to keep it positive. So we'll subtract the 2x, we'll add the 10, these cancel, we're left with 13 equals x. So we did the first part, now it says find angle 3. Now, we don't have any information about angle 3, so let's first plug this 13 in either for angle 1 or angle 2. I think lots of you will think angle 1 is easier. So 2 times 13 plus 3. 2 times 13 is 26 plus 3 is this 29 degrees. So that goes here for 1. We also know that would be the answer for 2. Now to find angle 3, we see that 3 is a linear pair with 2 and with 1. So we take 180 minus that 29, and we're going to get 151 degrees. That's what angle 3 equals. Okay, our next one here. If angle 1 and angle 2 are linear pairs, okay, we know that means their picture would be something like this. They're adjacent. We know it's a straight angle. They're going to add up to 180. So if this one is 1 and this one is 2, we can add them together to equal 180. So 2x plus 6 plus 2x plus 10, all that adds up to 180. Combine our like terms, so we'll get 4x plus 16 equals 180. Subtract this 16. 4x equals 164. Divide by 4. And we get x equals 41. Now we're not quite done. We need to find what angle 2 is. So we're going to plug that in right there. So it'll be 2 times 41 plus 10. So that's going to become 2 times 41 gives us 82 plus 10 gives us 92 degrees. And that's what angle 2 equals. All right. So now we're just about done. We're going to talk a little bit more about bisectors. So if we look down here, it says BD is a bisector of angle ABC. Find x. So BD here is a bisector. Anytime we see the word bisector, that tells us that these two sides are equal. Okay? So all we have to do is 3x equals x plus 20. Subtract that x, subtract it, cancels out here, and we're left with 2x equals 20. We can divide by 2. We'll get x equals 10. Our next one, once again, we see the word bisector. It means these two are equal. This time we're trying to find ABD. So we set those equal to each other. 6x plus 15 will equal 10x minus 25. So we subtract 6x from both sides. Then we add the 25. Divide by 4 and we get x equals 10. And we're not quite done. We can plug that in right there. So 6 times 10 gives us 60. Plus that 15 gives us a total of 75 degrees. Okay. Look down here. MK is a bisector of angle JKL. So if this is a bisector, same process. We know we can set those two equal to each other. So we add this 41 over, subtract the 2x, and you get 48 equals 2x. Divide by 2 on both sides, so you get x equals 24. Now all you'd have to do to find your answer for JKL, plug it into either side, and then we'll need both sides and add them together. Now we can choose either side to plug it into because we know they'll be the same. So if I plug it in right here, 2 times 24 is 48, plus 7 gives us 55. We know this one is 55, which if we add that together, that means the measure of angle JKL, 55 plus 55 equals 110 degrees. All right, so that's all I need for you guys today. Go ahead then, look at today's review, and please let me know if you have any questions. Hope you guys have a good day, and tomorrow we'll continue to practice these concepts.